From our studios at the corner of 8th and Walton in Bentonville, Arkansas, welcome to Saturday Morning Meeting, where we cover Walmart, Sam's Club, and the consumer product companies that are represented on the racks and shelves throughout the country and around the world. I'm Derek Ridenauer, and our focus is on the insights, trends, and best practices to help you as a supplier grow your business with the world's largest retailer. Thank you for joining us. And coming up today, I'll be talking with Chuck Hyde from the Soderquist Center about team development. And reviewing this week's headlines with me are Colby, Beland, and Theresa, Barrera-Shaw. But first, the headlines. Industry news sources recently focused on Walmart's comeback strategies. The Washington Post focused on Walmart's attempts at developing retail ecosystems. In these, supercenters will act as distribution hubs that service smaller stores and will also work hand in glove with mobile and e-commerce technology, allowing customers to use smartphones and computers to place orders, then pick them up at nearby stores. Other retailers made the headlines at Retailing Today this week. JCPenney announced it will follow Macy's example and open its doors at 8 p.m. on Thanksgiving evening, offering Black Friday shoppers an early start on holiday deals. Dollar General has partnered with Mansfield Oil to open a pilot gas station at one of its Alabama stores. As Retailing Today notes, if the test succeeds, Dollar General will be in a good position to compete with Walmart's express convenience stores, many of which also sell fuel. And finally, ABC News reports that a Florida Walmart unexpectedly got a new greeter this past Sunday when a 6-foot-long alligator decided to show up at its front door. While nobody was injured, Walmart associates wisely locked the doors and called police for assistance. A trapper eventually located the alligator, and the store's regular greeters resumed their post. Later, we will discuss improving team performance with Chuck Hyde from the Soderquist Center. And up next, the headlines as Saturday Morning Meeting continues.
GigWalk is an on-demand mobile workforce that can collect data and do work at retail. Businesses use GigWalk for retail audits, merchandising, and much more. With 350,000 smartphone-enabled workers available on demand, you get unprecedented speed and coverage across the U.S., Canada, and the UK. And all work is reviewed for quality and accuracy. Visit gigwalk.com to learn more.
Today's show has been sponsored in part by 8th and Walton, the premier destination for Walmart supplier education. Since 2006, 8th and Walton's by suppliers for suppliers approach to education and services has helped thousands of supplier teams grow their business with Walmart. Visit 8thandwalton.com to learn more.
And welcome back to Saturday Morning Meeting, joined now by Colby Beland with K-Stack and Theresa Barrera-Shaw. Welcome and thanks, guys. Colby, I want to start with you. As we were talking through the headlines, Walmart kind of going to a mini ecosystem where supercenters are going to replenish and kind of keep smaller stores, express stores at Walmart in stock. What opportunities do you see with that?
I see some challenges. The concern that I would have is the back supply room at Walmart, the storage space in a supercenter is not very big, and Walmart's currently having on-shelf availability issues in a supercenter. So if they're going to use that format to fulfill another part of the supply chain, how are they going to ensure that the OSA stays where it needs to fulfill the customer's needs? That would be my first concern.
Mm-hmm. Theresa, you were with Walmart for a long time. If you're a store manager running a supercenter and now you're finding out that you're going to be a mini distribution center, your inventory levels got to spike. And from a store manager perspective, I see that there would be obviously concerns about that. But how would you think Walmart would address that?
I think the biggest thing has to be communication and procedures that they have to make sure that are in place and doing. Because as a store manager, if you bring it in and don't get it out when it does, your inventories are going to be out of control. So I think they're going to have to be very tight on procedures and make sure they have the procedures taken care of, everybody trained, and understand how it's going to happen.
That's my biggest question: training. Yeah.
Training.
What type of employee? Managing inventory and ensuring it stays decremented and then gets transferred to the new store. How's that going to work?
And then from a supplier perspective, I see that there's a great possibility here, or could be a possibility in reducing pack size, because if you're shipping a 12-pack, obviously those smaller stores may not go through 12 units of something in a while. And you talked about how many times K-Stack has had to kind of repackage stuff and go from a 12 to a 6. Is there a benefit to suppliers? Do you think there's a benefit to suppliers who are proactive and get out there and begin to downsize their cases?
I think there's an advantage for the ones that are ahead of the game. I mean, you've already probably favor of your replenishment manager or your buyer for that department, that there's a cost associated with it, but it also hopefully helps improve turns and sales. So there's benefits to the supplier, there's benefits to Walmart, and ultimately, if you can make it easier to transfer or from the back room, whether it's in a supercenter or a small store format, to put it on the shelf and make it easy and not spend a lot of time restocking the shelf, it's a win for Walmart and hopefully helps your sales. So.
Okay. It'll be interesting to see how these mini ecosystems kind of develop over the next couple of months or a couple of years as Walmart continues to move down that road. Somebody else that is on the move is Dollar General. They're now adding gas stations into their stores. Theresa, coming from a Walmart perspective, and Walmart has done very well with gas stations and with neighborhood markets, what opportunities do you see this impact, or how do you see this impacting Walmart?
Well, Dollar General has made a lot of improvements over the years. It's cleaner. I mean, they actually have modulars that when you go in there, it's not at a different place every time you go. And they're doing some good business. So if they continue to keep their stores clean and continue to have the products on the shelf like they have been, adding gas is just going to make it a little bit more convenient. For mothers on the go and moving as fast as our customers and people are moving their lives as busy as they are, easy, convenient is going to be very important to our customers.
Colby?
So.
Well, the interesting thing to me is Dollar General, from a footprint standpoint, already has a substantial amount of stores in the marketplace. So adding fuel to that and being able to drive sales away from Walmart or pull customers away from Walmart by adding the additional option of gas and convenience, going back to in and out of the store. And I think you're still going to see people go to the supercenter to stock up, but for convenience items and not have to fight the lines of being in a supercenter, in and out, get my gas and be done with it.
And I see that Dollar General has really kind of captured what Walmart's core customer was historically, and that lower 30,000 and less income. So I think there's going to be a big benefit here. And I've always contended that if Aldi's and Dollar General were to get together, Walmart would really be in trouble. So it'll be interesting to see how they do it. One of the things that I think that Dollar General's going to have to overcome is in their models, they can set up a store very easily. If it's not profitable, they close it down, they move it to a different location where it can be. Adding gas could certainly complicate that.
It does, but I think Dollar General got ahead of the game with SKU rationalization. SKU rationalization at Walmart drove more consumers to the dollar store. And so they already have a stronghold on that customer. And adding gas, if it's in the right location, I think it's a win.
Okay, I want to move on to JCPenney. Announced this week that they're going to be opening their stores at 8 o'clock on Thanksgiving Day. Do you think, Theresa, I mean, again, coming from Walmart, what do you see the impact? Because I think that Walmart really is the one who can lose here because they're open on Thanksgiving, but how do you see it?
I have a lot of faith in Giselle. We're going to win. Walmart's going to win. I don't know what she has up her sleeve, but I know that they're going to come back with something because we're going to protect our customers, and we're going to protect what we've grown so hard, worked so hard to gain. And but for consumer, I want to eat my dinner and I want to rest before I have to get all that energy up the next day. But
well, the good thing is you don't have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning because you just go out at 8 o'clock.
Exactly. Well, or earlier, whatever that's going to be. I don't. Nobody knows. But yeah, I think she has something up her sleeve. I'm just not quite sure what it is yet.
And Colby, you and I were talking a little while ago about Walmart's apparel sales, which you'd read an interesting article about, and with JCPenney being almost exclusively apparel, but Walmart kind of dwarfs them.
As a matter of fact, if you look at the top 100 retailers, Walmart's obviously number one. Sears is, from a department type store, is in the top 10, but the next closest one in apparel is Kohl's, which is an entire department store, not just apparel, does $2 billion less than Walmart does in apparel annually. So it's just an interesting concept to think that Walmart's apparel, which most people don't think of Walmart as being a fashion mogul, but they do more in apparel than the most top retailers in the U.S.
Who specialize in apparel.
Exactly.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how what philosophies they have or what doorbusters they're going to open up with, and I'll be interested if Giselle's going to move when they kind of release those Black Friday items. Is it going to be 6 o'clock in the evening now? to try to get people in and ahead of that.
Well, I think at JCPenney, quite honestly, they're just struggling to survive. So anything that they can do at this point to get consumers into the store to be ahead of another retailer, they have to do something disruptive. I mean, they've got to find something that's different, or they're struggling.
And Macy's really isn't that big. I mean, they are a competitor, but Macy's is obviously not everywhere the Walmart is, so you're going to have to be in those larger cities. So I'm not sure if Macy's is going to be a factor. Theresa?
I think anybody that gets the customer dollars is a factor. And we can't lose sight of that, because if the dollars are out of the market, that's a factor. So we've got to get the dollars first, because somebody only has so many dollars.
Right.
And once the dollars are gone, so we've got to do, here we go again. Walmart has to do whatever they have to do to get capture those dollars first. And so Macy's, Target, Dollar General, everybody's a factor, and it's a short window this year.
Absolutely.
It is the worst time.
And there's still a question of how much dollars
are in the market.
In the market, how much are they going to spend?
Right.
Reports are saying one thing, but everything else kind of leans to a different side of the story. So,
okay, will be interesting to see how that comes, and hopefully Walmart will be successful, and consumers will ultimately be the winner here as they look at some discounts and some great deals. All right, well, thank you very much. And we want you to stay tuned, because when we come back, we're going to sit down with Chuck Hyde from the Soderquist Center. We'll talk about team development when Saturday morning meeting continues. Up next.
Cameron Smith & Associates is Supplier's first choice in recruiting the competitive Walmart supplier job market. We connect qualified candidates to CPG jobs in Northwest Arkansas and across the country. CSA also sources sales and marketing professionals for companies providing advertising, marketing, merchandising, and data management services to suppliers. Contact us today at csarecruiters.com.
Today's show has been sponsored in part by 8th & Walton, the premier destination for Walmart supplier education. 8th & Walton offers a variety of services including new supplier onboarding, scorecard optimization, and analysis and reporting. Visit 8thandwalton.com/services to learn more.
And welcome back to Saturday morning meeting. We're joined by Chuck Hyde. He is the CEO of the Soderquist Center at John Brown University. Thanks for coming in, Chuck.
Absolutely.
I want to get things started with, first of all, what does the Soderquist Center do? Obviously named for Don Soderquist, longtime Walmart associate, but what are some key things that you guys do?
Sure. Let's start with Don, really, because I think what's interesting about Don is that he's been retired from the board now for about 10 years, and so we've seen more and more people coming into the community that really never worked with Walmart or in the supplier community when Don was actually in his chair at Walmart as Senior Vice Chairman and COO. So I think a lot of people don't necessarily know that history, and so before Don retired, the Soderquist Center was sort of born out of this idea, really consistent with Don's career, about what does it mean to lead with values, what does it mean to drive culture, and how does culture drive performance. And I think Walmart's been the world's best case study in that, and Don certainly had a role in that with Mr. Sam and David Glass and all the others back in the day. And so we are sort of the current embodiment of that in how we work. And so the best way to describe it is a little bit, we look a lot like a consulting firm. Now, we don't necessarily consider ourselves that, but that's the way we really operate, particularly in our for-profit areas of our business. And so really doing leadership development, team, strengthening your team, and organizational development. So those are the three main buckets of where we work. And we have very specific programming designs in each of those four buckets. And so that's where we spend our time, most of it, and working through all kinds of different industries. Last year we did 22 industries all across the country, some international work. We had 173 projects and about 2,800 people that we touched. And so sometimes people think that the Soderquist Center is somehow connected to Walmart, or it's just does supplier work, and it's really not accurate. But we see actually suppliers, the most relevant thing today, is almost as their own segment. It's what's true about them and what the role they play between their home office and the world's largest retailer, right, is very unique. And so I tend to think of suppliers as one of those 22 industries.
Okay, well let's talk about suppliers.
Yeah.
And what are some key opportunities there or problems that you see suppliers having as they try to bring people in here that have probably never been to Arkansas before.
Right.
They're coming in, they're going to be calling on Walmart for the first time. But as they develop and they kind of try to grow their business, what are some opportunities that you see? And we're not talking about supply chain, we're not talking about merchandising, we're talking about from a true leadership and business development model.
Where I would start is with talent. Most of these, almost every supplier here attracts the best talent from that company to this account, and for obvious reasons. From a volume standpoint, visibility, and career management, even inside their company, the Walmart account is a great place to attract talent. So the talent we see on these teams is noticeable, and it drives a lot of things. And so one of the things that we see is as the talent continues to emerge, how do you develop that well? We can certainly do it through challenging assignments. That comes every day. But we can also be very intentional about that. And so I think one of the big needs that we see, and the primary role we play, is in talent development with supplier teams. And so in that developing the individual band of things, we whether it's leadership coaching, executive coaching, our high potential development types of programs like Milestone or Leadership Academy, those are the things that I think that I would start with that characterize supplier teams. Is how do you manage talent well? How do you develop it well? Most companies
and really develop to take it to the next level. We're not talking about skill sets, Excel and
not at all. Not at all. It's about leadership
of
development, because one of the things that most companies will have some type of in their talent management process a rating for someone that says promotable 2 or more levels from current position, and those roles here are like, okay, how do we develop them? It's not about their technical, whether it's sales, supply chain analyst, whatever. It's really about leadership, and how do we grow them as leaders inside the company to continue to take on more and more responsibility, develop their business acumen, their sensitivity to leadership and leading people, leading teams, leading culture. And that's where we start, and one of the big places we play with suppliers.
Are you finding that that's more and more challenging? I mean, we're in a society now where everybody gets a trophy and everybody tries to win. What opportunities are you seeing when people come to the Soderquist Center, and maybe they're coming willingly, maybe they're coming because the company says you're going to go do this, but what are the core opportunities that you seem to see or seem to be emerging now?
Yeah, what I would tell you before the economy took its turn a few years ago, I would say the approach was more about, hey, let's do something for everyone. Let's spend a little bit on everybody, do more team-wide types of recognition and development and things like that. Okay. When the economy started to turn, jobs started changing, certainly that coincided with Project Impact and a lot of other things were going on at Walmart. The need to develop talent, the need to have people perform at a higher level, shifted that to where now I want to invest more specifically to individuals, and how do I grow
the wheat from the chaff?
Well, yeah, there's select bands within any organization, and if I turn the knob on this particular band, I can get more out of that and more return out of that investment than maybe other places. And so
like any business decision, where's the ROI?
Absolutely, it's exactly it. And I think rather than managing it as an expense on the P&L about whether it's team building or whatever, team development, now it's about how do I amp the performance, even if it's still team, but certainly at the individual level. So people started being more strategic with their investment, and picking the spots inside the organization where I can really invest deeper in smaller segments.
So as you bring people in, what are some things that you do at the Soderquist Center that's really going to amp that up and take those people to the next level?
Yeah, so on that individual band, there's really 2 things. And for the teams that are large and can achieve scale on their own, we've seen some really neat work in what we call Leadership Academy. And so it's still an individual development program on how do you lead yourself well, how do you begin to lead others well, and then what does it mean to lead within the organization, to grow that organizational sensitivity. So it's not just about this particular line you may be running at Walmart, but how do we grow the overall portfolio with the company? So it's a progression, but what the teams with a certain amount of scale can achieve is, what does it mean to lead inside the company culture or the company context, which again, not everybody has that scale here in Northwest Arkansas, but those
you have
that
one-person offices like myself, and then you have the Unilevers and the P&Gs.
Yeah, you have a ton of offices that are 10 people or less or 20 people
Right.
or less, and that's hard to do. But with the big ones, they've found ways to say, how do I develop that band of people? It's still an individual program, but it's inside that company context. That's a huge opportunity for those bigger companies. The smaller teams tend to use like a milestone program. That's our 4-day high potential leadership development. So they've sort of created their pipeline of saying, hey, I want to get the person outside the context, get them into a small group of cross section of industries, cross sectional geographies, company types, and look at leadership. So it's a very reflective program in terms of who am I, what do I stand for, what's the leader that I aspire to be, and how do I get a plan to get on it. It's very much introspective, and starting with your values, leading inside, its ultimate expression, outside to other folks.
As people begin to build their careers or try to move those forward, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you seem to see repetitively from people?
Well, I think the biggest mistake is that you can't grow in position. I think sometimes people think that they've got to get the next job, whether it's a lateral kind of cross-functional transfer or that next job
right.
in that ladder. I heard Susan Chambers one time say, be world-class where you are. And I think that's the best advice anybody could give anybody in terms of really doing everything you can in the current job. Those are the
By the way, I
things
want to
that
point
will
out,
come.
Susan Chambers is the Executive Vice President of the People Division
Right.
at Walmart. Okay.
Yeah, good clarification. But I think Susan does a great job there. And when she said that stuck with me because I had seen that in my job at Kimberly-Clark back in the day, and I see it now with companies we work for, is that sometimes people get so eager to take the next job, they forget to be excellent or world-class right where they are. And so patience sometimes the lack of patience gets in our way. The other thing I think is that people think that they have to lead inside the company context. Bob McCaslin, who's now your mayor in Bentonville, had a long career at Kraft Foods. One time we had a conversation about how people miss the opportunity to develop themselves as leaders or develop leaders inside their team by getting involved in the community. So there's all kinds of opportunities to get involved, whether it's a not-for-profit or something inside, volunteer opportunity to develop themselves as leaders outside the company context. And then
Right.
that muscle you're developing, you can bring back to work.
What's the old saying? No one cares what you know until they know how much you care.
Exactly,
Like
and that's a good way to express that into the community, things you're passionate about. And we have so much talent here, again, to inject that into our community. Would be a great thing, and so people miss those simple opportunities because we think we've got to achieve some level or some title by a certain point in our career.
What advice would you give to business professionals who are looking to take those next steps in terms of the Soderquist Center?
I think there's a couple things that you can do. Some of the if you really want that experience, or you want to give somebody that experience of getting outside the company context, I think open enrollment type programs like Milestone, for example, would be a great thing. But again, one of the things we developed about a year and a half ago was these video kits, and it's a self-contained deal where you get a video with Don and David Glass, or we've got John Pepper, retired CEO of P&G, Steve Reineman, retired CEO from PepsiCo. These kinds of people that our suppliers would resonate with, talking about a leadership concept. Well, they're designed to be a 45-minute lunch and learn. Well, I think somebody that could say, hey, I can spend almost nothing, spend 45 minutes with a group of people and facilitate a discussion around something here's this principle, and how do we apply it into our business? Now you're developing your team. You're developing yourself because you're the one starting getting up front and taking initiative. Those kinds of things I think people can do pretty simply, looking for ways to develop themselves. And I think
networking.
And networking, absolutely. Networking inside the walls of the organization. The best people I knew at Kimberly-Clark, when I was there, they knew how to get stuff done inside the organization because they had relationships. And they had developed those in meaningful ways. And they could get things,
which is key,
move forward. It's huge.
And then final question, what keeps you up at night?
I think probably like any other leader in an organization, relevance and sustainability, not in the Walmart sense of sustainability, right, but just sustaining our business model. We could sit on the 15 years that we've been doing this and become obsolete pretty quickly. And so understanding how to continue to keep our ear to the ground at Walmart, where we work, in the supplier community where we work, and other industries, paying attention and not becoming where we could decay, become stale or obsolete, but staying on that cutting edge. That's one of the reasons why I love working with suppliers, because again, they naturally bring an edge because of that talent, because of the expectations Walmart puts on them and their home office puts on them. It makes us better whenever we work with a Walmart supplier. So
Constantly changing.
Constantly changing, constantly staying relevant, constantly putting it out there to go further, because I think that's the environment they find themselves in.
Okay, well, Chuck, thank you very much for coming in. I do appreciate it. Coming up next week, we'll be talking with Patrick Sparrow from New Creature Design about starting and growing a business in Northwest Arkansas. Again, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next Saturday morning.